Welcome back to Trusted. So Brad, today we have an interesting topic. With the constraints on the budgets of companies today on how can I save money, what can I do, with a real life problem like the manufacturer saying, you know what, I'm not going to support your equipment anymore. It's end of life. I need you to replace it. Those two things collide. Okay, I don't have money in the budget. However, I need you to replace it because this one's really old. What do you do? I mean, what do you do when a manufacturer comes to you, Brad, and they say, I'm not going to support your equipment anymore?
Yeah, well, as a customer at that point, I really have two options that I can take. I mean, the first one could be that I just let that maintenance expire and leave myself in an unsupported situation. And we know that's really not an option if, in fact, that piece of technology we're talking about runs a core portion of the business or is extremely vital to our day-to-day operations. That's really not an option, but it is an option. One other possibility is, and a lot of people do not think about this initially, is taking a look at a third-party maintenance provider for basically even though it's outside of the vendor's life cycle as far as technology is concerned, many times third-party maintenance providers actually specialize in those types of things. I mean, what's been your experience?
Well, absolutely. We've worked hand in hand with third-party maintenance providers for many, many years. And I find them to be more customizable. I find them to really be more personable. With a manufacturer, you're dealing with a company, IBM may have thousands and thousands of different assets that they deploy at a different time. However, you form a relationship with a third-party maintenance provider and you sort of get the same guy. He becomes intimate with your network and your environment. And he comes in and learns, and he's actually adding value. Where you're sort of a bigger piece of you're just in a cog. You're a cog in a huge piece of a machine when you're dealing with a manufacturer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those and third-party maintenance providers, like we're talking about, many times, they've got to keep up with the technology as it's being put out by the vendors, and so they have specialized training in these types of things. So again, when you might not be putting yourselves in a very vulnerable position because these gentlemen, these ladies, they actually know the equipment, just like the vendor. What would you say to this though? I mean, what would you say? Let's pretend that even in the case where something still is in the supported life cycle from a vendor, I mean, do you think that third party is a viable alternative for something that is currently in production and in a supported situation? Oh,
absolutely. And the reason being is if your company is under P&L scrutiny and you're looking to save money, well, if you take the piece of your IT budget, up to 70% of that whole pie is maintenance and support. So, I know we focus a lot on looking at saving money on the new acquisition, the new machines, the new assets we're going to buy. However, if 70% of it is for ongoing support and maintenance, why wouldn't you look there? Why wouldn't you look at options there if you're going to get the same service or even better for sometimes half the price of the manufacturer? Wouldn't you want to look there?
Yeah, I mean, even and as you said, because that piece of the pie for maintenance support is so significant, I mean, that really is an easy target for CIOs or operations managers to say, hey, that's a lot of money. How can we save money there? So I think you're definitely on point that that is an easy first place to go. Let's pretend that, again, we're the client though, and we've got some angst about giving up care and custody of a key piece of good technology, giving it over to a third-party maintenance provider. Where would you, if you were that person, I mean, where would you start? Like, where would you recommend that person start?
Well, I would definitely vet first off, there's two scenarios there. One, I would definitely not, I would ease into my comfort zone. I would not give them the main operating system unless I was just in that situation where it was the end of the life cycle. Mm-hmm. I would start gaining confidence and I would trickle my way into the scenario. So the output devices, potentially, the printers, that's a great place to start because, quite frankly, if your printers are down versus your production system, that's a different level of threat for your business.
Even, I can imagine even things like the work in the logistics side, hand scanners, things like that. I mean, really, when you think about it, how much how much comfort or how much possible downside is there of trusting someone to handle that spare scanner that sits on the side of the shelf? You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and there's tons. Like I said, we're all evolving, and there's the ways that these third-party maintenance providers deliver and solve problems are radically different than they were 5 or 6 years ago. And I mean, the tools are better, the processes are better. Basically, your threat is less right now. So I think it's a very good way to save money in the budget. In fact, I see in all the stuff that I do, I see a better service at the end of the day with a third-party maintenance provider than I do the manufacturer. Now, at the very top with firmware and BIOS and different stuff, there's some stuff that the manufacturer needs to get involved with. However, if you're really a good third-party managed service provider, you're in bed with the manufacturer and you have access to all of that stuff as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so I think what we really tried to uncover this morning is, whether you're in a supported situation or whether you're basically coming out of that supported situation with a vendor, we definitely believe that a third-party maintenance provider is a viable alternative to save capital, to maintain that consistent level of service, but also cover you and have your back in the event that something happens.